What's up, everybody? This is RBT. Welcome to another edition of Friday Questions and Answers. Like always, leave a question in the comment section below. 10 questions will be answered in next week's episode. Make sure to leave a question so you might be featured in next week's episode. It can be about anything sports related, personal life related, anything, and it could have a chance to be answered next week. Let's get started. The first question for this week comes from Mr. Awesome. He asks, what record do you think Auburn will have this season? I think undefeated and national champs. That's what he says. I think Auburn will lose 1 to 2 games. I don't believe they go undefeated this year. I think their offense is going to be even better than last year, and that seems like it. I mean, that's kind of hard to fathom because their offense was great last year. I think they'll be better, but I think their defense will lose them 1 to 2 games. They won't get as lucky as they were last year. Don't take anything away from last year. They had an amazing magical type season, but that only happens once a century. So I don't think that type of season will happen again. But still, a very, very solid team. 1 to 2 losses, I believe, for Auburn. And that probably could be good enough to even get them into the SEC champion and maybe even the college football playoff. So we'll just have to see on that, but 1 to 2 losses. Second question comes from Tristan Roberts. He asked, who are you pulling for in the World Cup now that the USA is out? Right now, it's the finals, Germany and Argentina. Honestly, I'm pulling for Argentina because they're considered the underdogs. But I do believe Germany will win. They're such a tough team to beat. They're so solid in every phase of the game. A great team. Maybe they'll come out and be big-headed from that 7-1 victory over Brazil. But I do think Germany wins, although I am pulling for Argentina. Third question comes from Razorback Fan 1995. He asked, what are your thoughts on the Browns owner saying that Manziel needs to cool it with the partying? I mean, I can understand it from an owner's standpoint. You don't want your team to have negative publicity. He already gave Manziel a shot drafting him, even though he knows he get a lot of negative feedback from the press with all the things he does off the field. But, you know, honestly, I don't think it's a big deal. I think Manziel does what Manziel's going to do. He does what every a lot of NFL players do. And he just, for some reason, because of success in college and he's such a big media type story, can attract so much attention. Everything he does in life is picked apart, analyzed, and never really for the positive or for the negative. So I think what he does is not any different from 80% of the NFL players. Yeah, if he wanted to, he could avoid this stuff that he's doing, and he's choosing not to. But I don't think it's much of a big deal, and it won't affect his play because he's doing the same stuff that he did in college, and it hasn't affected his play at all. So I think he'll be just fine, and I think he'll be pretty good in the NFL with the Browns. Question number 4 comes from Jake Fredericks. He asked, who would be your college football all-decade team from the 2000s? Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defensive line, linebacker, and DB. I'll give a single player for each position. Quarterback, have to go with Vince Young. The guy put up insane numbers at Texas, brought them a national championship, and had one of the most, if not the most impressive performances of all time in a national championship game, which is so impressive at Texas. I have to get him the quarterback spot. Running back, no other than Adrian Peterson. He put up insane numbers in Oklahoma, was so impressive, was such an insane, highly touted recruit out of high school, and one of the most highly touted recruits out of all time coming out of high school. Played well at Oklahoma, and I think he transitioned that pretty well into the National Football League. Wide receiver is Larry Fitzgerald. If you remember, he was around in the early 2000s with Pittsburgh. He put up insane numbers at Pittsburgh, and just like the other guys I mentioned, well, not necessarily Vince Young, but like Adrian Peterson, transitioned his game pretty well into the National Football League. Defensive line, this guy that comes off the top of my mind is Ndamukong Suh. Was one of the most insane, dominant defensive tackles I've ever seen in my lifetime. If you said from the 2000 to now, I would actually have to say Aaron Donald. The guy was insane for Pitt. The guy was absolutely incredible. But for this, I would give it to Ndamukong Suh. Put up Heisman-type stats at defensive line. So definitely him for the defensive line position. Linebacker, I'd probably have to give that one to Pat Willis. You know, he was around with Ole Miss in the early 2000s. Another guy that played insane in college and transitioned pretty well into the National Football League. And last, I believe you said defensive back. I would have to give this one to Eric Berry. Played for Tennessee, and like some of the other guys, was one of the most highly touted recruits out of high school. He transitioned perfectly into college and was one of the most hardest hitters in my lifetime. The guy was insane, had amazing cover skills at safety position, so Eric Berry would have to round out this question at defensive back. Halfway point, question number 5 comes from Daniel Perry. He says, I think the new setup of picking 10 questions sucks, but you got to do what you got to do. How many wins do you have UGA picking up this upcoming season? I agree. I know 10 questions kind of sucks, but you got to think about it. It's a higher quality video and put a lot more effort into it. If I was to put 30 questions up in this video, the video would be 30 minutes long, would take 2 days to upload. With my upload speed, it would take me hours and hours to edit. Trying to make the production better and everything, and I hope you guys understand, but I do know only picking 10 sucks. But to answer your other question, wins for Georgia, I would say 10 to 11. I don't think they go undefeated. They'll drop somewhere. I think there won't be an undefeated team in the SEC this year, if not the whole entire country. I don't believe there will be an undefeated team, except one. I think I'll name that one later if I looked at the questions correctly. But definitely not the SEC. There's so much inexperience at the quarterback position with the teams with the most complete type teams are missing the quarterback, and the teams with a good quarterback don't have the most amazing talent around him offensively and defensively. So I think Georgia wins 10 to 11, but drops one here or there, and they, like I said, Auburn earlier, could very well be playing for the SEC championship and even a shot in the college football playoff. Question number 6 comes from Brenton Jennings. He says, the Arkansas Razorbacks recently have been doing horrible these past few years. Do you think they'll do better this upcoming football season with the weird schedule and all? Honestly, I hadn't really looked deep into Arkansas' schedule. I just looked it up, and it is a very, very tough schedule. Very odd to start off with the SEC game against Auburn. That's no tough test to start the season off with. They go to Texas Tech to play the Red Raiders. They play about every single tough SEC team, and it's going to be tough. It really is. I think I'm going to give them 5 wins. I even go to, I believe they either play Northern Illinois at home or away, but Northern Illinois, they do lose Jordan Lynch, but that's still a tough team regardless, so that'll be a tough one too. But I'm going to give Arkansas the benefit of the doubt, give them 5 to 6 wins. At worst I would say 3 to 4. At best, I think 6, but I think it's a realistic possibility to get 6. But that's all I can see. 4 to 6 wins basically for Arkansas. And I think that is better than the last few years. So I think Arkansas fans who want steady improvement would be okay with 5, 6 wins. Question number 7 comes from DJ Hayes. He says, to make sure more people get their questions answered, can you not do the same person twice in 10 questions? And can you answer the other questions via Google+? That's actually a really good idea. And I saw this comment or question before I made this video, and I decided to do that starting now. So every question will be from a different person, won't be the same person twice in a week. But if you're somebody that likes to ask multiple questions, be sure to do that so you have a better chance to be featured in the episode. But to answer your second question, honestly, I don't use Google+. I hate Google+, so the answer to that question is probably no. Maybe I can look into doing something else another time with another social media outlet, but I just hate Google+, and I don't really want to use it ever because I just have a sour taste in my mouth with Google+ because of what it did to YouTube, and I don't really like it. But maybe I'll look into something like that in the future. Question number 8 comes from Hambone694. Says, thanks for answering my question. At least you picked us to win the Big 12, referencing to Oklahoma. I really believe we're going to be special this year, especially if DGB can play this year. And another question, who do you think could be a dark horse to not necessarily win the national championship, but to have a really good season? I think I've mentioned this before, but really haven't touched on it recently, and it's kind of off the radar, but it's Marshall. Marshall, the reason being, they bring back their starting quarterback, Rakeem Keita, who's been absolutely phenomenal for Marshall the past few years, put up some insane stats, has turns the ball over very, very little. I think there was one year he actually went 26 touchdowns without throwing an interception. I think he finally threw one. But anyway, he controls the football, and they have a lot of talent coming around them, coming back with them, and they're going to be a solid team. But the reason I think they're going to have a special season is because they have a extremely weak schedule. And yeah, I know people will rag on this or not, this and that, but they're going to have a weak schedule, and there's not a team on the schedule that I believe can beat Marshall. I think they're going to be favored in every single game, and I think they'll win them all. So I think at the end of the regular season they'll win the CUSA, and even though going undefeated with that schedule, I'm not real sure if they'll be ranked high enough to make it into the the other big tier bowl game that automatically gives the highest ranked team out of the Power 5 conferences an invite. I forget what bowl it is, but I think from now on every year the highest ranked non-automatic qualifier or Power 5 conference team gets an invite to the outside, what is, I guess you can consider a BCS bowl. So I don't think they'll be ranked very high at the end of the season, although they might go undefeated, which I think they will. But they will be solid, and watch out for Marshall, because even though they have a weak schedule, they're a very dangerous team. And if they played some better schools, I think they'd have a good shot in some of those games. Question number 9 comes from Matt Man, the real fan. He says, like you did in the FIFA fail video, are you going to have a face cam now? I had a face cam in that video because I was recording a live commentary. If I do live commentaries from now on, most of the time they will have a face cam, because like I said, I'm trying to up the production of my videos to really help bring my YouTube game up. If I do live comms, yes, but like my NCAA Dynasty series, no they won't. But for live commentaries, they will. And I just happened to get that clip while I was recording that. And if you didn't watch, I actually uploaded another FIFA video, Germany versus Argentina live commentary gameplay, a match against one of my friends. I was playing as Germany versus Argentina live commentary with a webcam, a face cam. Go check that out if you haven't already. Final question this week comes from Mr. Awesome. I know that I said I wasn't going to feature the same person twice, but there wasn't enough questions this week. But his question was, what 4 teams do you think will make it to the playoffs in college football? I think I've actually answered this a couple times in the past few weeks, but I don't mind answering it multiple times because, like I've mentioned when I've answered that question, I tend to change my opinions every week to week. So to answer that question, as of right now, I'll go with Alabama, UCLA, Florida State. The 4th team is up in the air. Florida State, and I think I'm going to stick with it. Michigan State. And that's been my answers for the past month, really, is when this question's answered, is Michigan State, Alabama, Florida State, and UCLA. So I'm going to stick with that. And maybe it'll change here in the near future, but that's it right now. Okay guys, that wraps it up for this Friday Questions and Answers episode. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to hit that like button if you did. Try to get this video to around 50 likes. Let's see if we can get that going. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And make sure, if you haven't, leave a question in the comment section below. Like I've said, it can be about anything, life-related, sports-related, personal, anything, and that will have a chance to be featured in next week's episode. Catch you guys next time. Have a great week. Peace.